Today, I will be discussing a book that has consistently held the top spot on Amazon's list of psychology, self-help category for 10 years, titled Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. From the perspective of brain science, this book answers two questions that many people are concerned about. Why do you feel unhappy? How can you make yourself happier? Before diving into the content, please click on the subscribe button below to stay updated and support our channel. Okay, let's start. The author of this book is Dr. Daniel Amen, a neuroscientist known as the father of brain health in the United States. He has also been hailed by the Washington Post as America's most popular psychiatrist. Dr. Amen has established the nationwide Amen clinics, which attract patients from around the world. Currently, Amen clinics have collected over 100,000 brain scans, making it one of the largest brain science databases in the world. So, as America's most popular psychiatrist, what unique perspectives does Dr. Amen provide in the book? Having read it, I have two main takeaways. First, many of the demons that make you feel unhappy, such as anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and hostility towards others, can be newly explained from the perspective of brain science. Here's an example from the book. Why do some people like to provoke others when they talk? Dr. Amen, after observing many brain scans, explains that many people do this because their prefrontal cortex is not healthy. This is actually a physiological problem. We'll delve into the specifics later. When there are problems, solutions are needed, which is the second value of this book. Dr. Amen provides many brain science-based methods to improve brain health and enhance happiness. Interestingly, some solutions might be hard to believe if you hadn't seen them in this authoritative book on brain science. For instance, how can you strengthen your brain? One method is to be kind to others and build good relationships. Surprisingly, this seemingly trivial prescription has a rigorous brain science basis behind it. What is it? We'll discuss this in more detail later. Next, I will divide the explanation of this book into two parts. The first part will discuss the relationship between the brain and happiness. You'll discover that many modern people's mental demons result from brain health issues. The second part will cover Dr. Amen's solutions to these problems. Part 1. First, let's discuss the relationship between the brain and happiness. Simply put, every feeling related to happiness in your life, what makes you happy or sad, all originates from your brain. The way your brain processes information determines whether you are happy. For example, regarding marriage, some people feel extremely excited before getting married, believing their life has reached its peak. Others feel extraordinarily anxious the night before the wedding. This difference results from how their brains process information differently. In other words, to understand the relationship between the brain and happiness, we must know how the brain processes information. By understanding the underlying mechanisms, you will comprehend how those mental demons hindering happiness arise, enabling you to combat them effectively. The brain has many regions, all of which are more or less related to our sense of happiness. Dr. Amen believes that two brain regions are most closely related to happiness. The first region is called the deep limbic system. This area is only as small as a walnut, but it bears significant responsibility. While it cannot directly solve problems, you can't solve any problems without it. Why? Problem-solving abilities primarily come from the cortex, which gives humans planning, organizational, and logical reasoning skills. However, for these abilities to function optimally, humans need a strong desire to see things happen. Simply put, you need passion, dreams, and expectations. Where do these feelings come from? The answer is the deep limbic system. The deep limbic system is the emotional filter of the brain, determining your emotional tone towards things. It acts like a pair of tinted glasses, coloring neutral events in daily life. If this color is positive, you see everything positively. If it is negative, you see everything negatively. For example, some people are happy about getting married, while others are anxious because their deep limbic system casts different emotional tones over their brains. It might seem logical to think that the more active this area is, the better. Just like exercising the body, more activity means stronger health. But the deep limbic system is the opposite. The more active it is, the more negative you become. Because when the deep limbic system becomes overactive, all types of emotions are activated. Note that all emotions are triggered simultaneously, including both positive and negative ones. However, negative emotions often overpower positive ones. This isn't about personality, but is a result of evolution. We naturally tend to amplify negative signals because they are more related to survival. For a primitive human, eating more food just meant a bit more satiety, but being bitten by a poisonous snake could be life-threatening. It's the same today. Getting a $100 reward might make you slightly happy, but being fined $100 could make you extremely upset. Of course, an overactive deep limbic system is bad, but an inactive one isn't good either. If it's inactive, your emotions dull and you lose interest in everything. In other words, our goal isn't to stimulate or suppress the deep limbic system, but to keep it at a normal activity level. How to regulate it will be discussed later. That's the first brain region, the deep limbic system. It's the brain's emotional filter, setting your emotional tone. The second brain region closely related to happiness is the prefrontal cortex, mentioned earlier. This is the brain's CEO, responsible for making judgments and acting as the brain's braking system to control impulses. What happens if this area is abnormal? As mentioned earlier, it leads to provoking behavior because the prefrontal cortex functions as a brake, which requires clearly perceiving external stimuli. When the brake fails, we become less sensitive to stimuli. However, the prefrontal cortex itself has a certain demand for stimuli. Therefore, those with deficits in this area seek external stimulation. Mild symptoms include provocative speech to elicit emotional responses from others, thereby satisfying the prefrontal cortex's needs. Severe symptoms involve picking fights or causing trouble. In other words, many provocative behaviors aren't intentional but rather attempts by people with unhealthy prefrontal cortices to patch up their brains by seeking external stimulation. To maintain a healthy prefrontal cortex, we can actively seek some stimulation to keep it active. For example, engage in intense physical exercise or participate in safe yet exciting activities like roller coasters. You can also tackle challenging tasks, which not only enhance your abilities, but also keep the prefrontal cortex at a healthy activity level. This is the second brain region related to happiness, the prefrontal cortex. There are other brain regions related to happiness, like the basal ganglia, which coordinates attention and helps you prioritize concerns. If this area has problems, a person becomes overly concerned with everything. Another example is the cingulate gyrus, the brain's attention-switching system. allowing you to shift focus from one task to another. Problems here lead to fixations on specific issues, making it hard to move on. There are many such brain regions, but we'll not cover them all here. This concludes the first part. What is the relationship between the brain and happiness? We've discussed two brain regions closely related to happiness. These regions, in some way, affect our sense of happiness. Note that these regions have many functions beyond what we've discussed. We only covered those closely related to happiness. So, how can you make your brain healthier and increase your happiness? The author provides many suggestions for brain health in the book. For instance, supplementing serotonin levels in your body. Serotonin is a mood regulator that makes you feel more optimistic and relaxed. How do you supplement it? By eating foods rich in L-tryptophan, which is converted into serotonin in the brain. Foods like salmon, chicken, and milk are good choices. Dr. Amen also suggests quitting smoking and drinking and eating a high-fiber diet, among other things. These recommendations might be familiar from other sources. But does Dr. Amen propose any unique brain health solutions? Absolutely. I found 3 particularly interesting and uncommon suggestions in the book. Next, in Part 2, I'll share these 3 suggestions with you. Part 2. The first suggestion, as mentioned earlier, is to establish good relationships. Whether at home or in society, strive to maintain good relationships. Don't think this is just casual advice. There's a brain science basis behind it. Earlier, we mentioned the deep limbic system as the emotional filter of the brain, setting your emotional tone. It also stores all emotional memories, both positive and negative. The more positive memories it stores, the more positive your emotional tone. Conversely, the more negative memories, the more pessimistic you'll be about new experiences. This is why the author suggests having good relationships to make your brain feel happier. Good relationships mean people around you like you, leaving you with more pleasant memories. Additionally, the better your relationships, the better your ability to recover from sadness. The deep limbic system's memories form chemical links with our nerves. This is why the death of a loved one can cause immense pain, because the brain signals the deep limbic system that these people will no longer interact with you, severing the emotional and memory connections, translating psychological pain into physical pain. However, these severed connections can be repaired by happy memories. The author found that those with better relationships grieve more initially but recover faster because their memories of the deceased are filled with positive moments without regrets. These memories stimulate the brain to release positive neurotransmitters, helping repair the severed chemical links. Conversely, those with poor relationships with the deceased only recall problems and the chemical links remain broken, causing prolonged pain. In other words, good relationships help store more pleasant memories, leading to a more positive emotional tone in the deep limbic system. They also improve the system's ability to recover from grief. Similarly, you should occasionally go out with your family or have a romantic dinner with your partner. Creating surprises in your close relationships activates positive memories, enriching your deep limbic system. From a brain science perspective, small surprises in life are also necessary. However, building good relationships takes time and patience. If you lack patience, I recommend Dr. Amen's second suggestion, which is simple and might surprise you. Smell. Smell scents you like. such as wearing perfume or placing flowers with pleasant scents in your room. Whatever scent you enjoy, surround yourself with it often. Remember, it's about smelling, not eating. What you eat goes to your stomach and is processed by the digestive system. What you smell activates the olfactory nerves, which then reach the deep limbic system. This is why certain smells evoke strong emotional reactions. For example, Napoleon once wrote to his lover Josephine, asking her not to bathe for 2 weeks before his return from a campaign, hoping her scent would stimulate his sexual desire. In other words, the sense of smell is a quick entry point to the deep limbic system. That's the second suggestion. Frequently smell scents you like. Use pleasant olfactory experiences to strengthen your deep limbic system. The third suggestion is to externalize your emotions by clearly writing them down and breaking them into smaller parts to understand what you truly desire. This suggestion isn't a direct quote from Dr. Amen, but a summary I derived from the book's various methods. The book offers many self-help questionnaires, like the Anteater exercise, which involves writing down negative emotions and imagining them as ants to be eliminated one by one. Another method is called the one-page miracle, where you write down 4 words: relationships, work, money, and self on a piece of paper and list your goals for each. Then, stick the paper by your bedside to remind yourself to focus on these goals daily, avoiding unnecessary distractions. There are many similar self-help questionnaires. Their primary purpose is the same: to externalize your emotions, transforming vague feelings into clear words on paper. To understand why this is useful, we need to know about 2 mechanisms in the brain. The first is the desire mechanism, or dopamine system. When your deepest desires are fulfilled, it activates the dopamine system, creating a sense of happiness. The second is the wanting mechanism, or opioid system. The opioid system works by releasing endorphins when you achieve something you want, giving you a short-term sense of pleasure. It's important to note the difference between desire and wanting. Desire refers to deep-seated needs, like the desire for love, success, and health, activating the brain's dopamine system, leading to long-term satisfaction. Wanting refers to short-term irrational demands, activating the brain's opioid system, which releases signals telling you that fulfilling these wants will make you happy. However, the opioid system is never truly satisfied, leading to a cycle of short-lived pleasure followed by emptiness and the urge to repeat the behavior. For example, in an argument between spouses, you might feel that yelling at the other person will make you feel better. But the relief is brief, followed by renewed anger, prompting another round of yelling. This behavior resembles drug addiction. The opioid system's function is akin to drugs, which is why it's named after opiates. Externalizing emotions helps suppress the opioid system to some extent, allowing the dopamine system, or desire mechanism, to take more control. Writing emotions on paper allows you to analyze them further. You can trace the emotions step by step. Why do I feel this way? Where do these feelings come from? What problem is causing them? What desire does this problem reflect in my heart? For instance, in a marital argument, by questioning why the argument occurred, you might discover that many conflicts stem from a desire for the other's love. A wife might get angry when her husband comes home late because she desires his attention and care. Externalizing emotions doesn't directly solve emotional problems. Its value lies in identifying deep-seated desires by analyzing emotions. thereby suppressing the opioid system and reducing irrational thoughts and behaviors. Essentially, it helps you focus on the matter at hand and reduces unnecessary negative emotions. While this method doesn't offer a complete cure, it provides an interesting way to understand the brain's underlying mechanisms. That concludes part 2 on how to improve brain health to enhance happiness. We discussed 3 methods: establishing good relationships, smelling pleasant scents, and externalizing emotions. These approaches aim to make your deep limbic system healthier and reduce unnecessary negative emotions. In summary, we covered 2 main parts of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. First, the relationship between the brain and happiness. In short, all your feelings depend on how your brain processes information, directly influencing your happiness. 2 brain regions are most closely related to happiness: the deep limbic system, the emotional filter, and the prefrontal cortex, the brain's braking system. Second, we discussed 3 methods to improve brain health and increase happiness: establishing good relationships, smelling pleasant scents, and externalizing emotions. These methods aim to create positive memories and regulate brain activity to reduce negative emotions. Finally, let me share an interesting tidbit. I once read a novel called Synthesis. It is about a brilliant brain scientist who kidnapped a mentally challenged child to explore the mysteries of the human brain. He remodeled the child's brain based on his own brain scans, making it identical to his. The professor believed the child would become as intelligent, selfless, and noble as he was. But the result was a highly intelligent but cruel child who killed the professor. The reason? The professor himself was cruel for kidnapping an innocent child for experiments. When he replicated his brain, he also transferred his deep-seated cruelty without realizing it. This story reminds us that the brain doesn't lie. Who you are is reflected in your brain. While the story's scientific rigor is uncertain, it shares a subtle connection with today's discussion on brain science, which I found worth sharing. That's the essence of this book. The original book link is attached at the end for further reading. You can also click the share button below the video to share this book with your friends. Congratulations, you've just finished another book.